All right, welcome to another episode of the Meat Mafia podcast. We are joined here today by Dr. Mary Caire, who's a fifth generation doctor who was educated in the traditional system and has slowly moved over to a more holistic approach to medicine. And we are really excited to have her here. She's going to break down some topics that we talk about all the time. So Mary, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Did we do the proper job introducing you with your titles and everything? Because you were explaining it before we hit the record button, and it was incredibly
Sure. No, I'll just tell everyone that's listening just a little bit of my background so they kind of have a history. I am a medical doctor, traditionally trained. I went to undergrad at Texas Christian University and then medical school at Louisiana State University, which is my hometown of New Orleans. And I I graduated from med school in '97 and completed a double residency, which was something that we used to do in certain specialties. We would combine two specialties into a longer residency. So I did combined internal medicine and physical medicine and rehabilitation. And I'm board certified in physical medicine and rehabilitation. And that was the focus of my practice for many, many years. Finished in 2002 and have been a solo practitioner since that time. But my initial practice focused on pain management, and I also did a lot of wound care and non-surgical orthopedics. But I didn't ever quite subscribe to the regular ways of doing pain management. And ironically, I got sick after all of the stress of medical school and then running your own practice and then taking care of people in chronic pain. Ironically, I became a patient myself, a chronic pain patient, and developed a mysterious illness that we don't know the etiology of, or no one knows what causes it, but it was an inflammatory autoimmune condition. I won't bore you with the details other than I got really, really sick. And I had to go on my own health journey to find a solution after I had visited countless specialists trying to figure out why I was in so much pain, and ultimately stumbled across functional medicine, and which is basically the difference between the two types of medicine. The way I look at it is the way I was originally trained was symptom management. Basically, that's what we're taught to do in medical school and residency. Whereas functional medicine is more getting to the root cause of what caused the problem to begin with and fix it at the root cause. So out of desperation, I started looking into functional medicine and specifically nutritional medicine. And I actually decided to invest in a 2-year fellowship to learn about it. And once you learn about it, you really can't go back. This is something you can't unsee. You've been doing something for so long a certain way, and then all of a sudden, out of a crisis, you realize you have to find a different way. There was no answer in traditional Western medicine. And I was able to heal myself of something that was considered incurable. Kind of, I guess, like what one of you was telling a story I heard. You were telling Carmen on your podcast about your battle with ulcerative colitis. And same sort of thing. Out of desperation, you'll try anything. And fortunately, one of those things that I tried was nutrition, lifestyle, and instead of looking for something to cover up the symptoms, I turned my entire life around and became perfectly healthy and cured. I guess I'm cured. I've been over 10 years now, symptom free, and have a normal, happy, healthy life, thank goodness. But came to that through getting to the root cause of what caused everything, which was stress management, lack of sleep, lack of nutrition, processed food, sugar addiction. You name it. I did it all wrong and had no choice but to eventually fix it. And so once you kind of see the truth and empower yourself and learn a different way, you can't unsee it, and you can't go back to practicing the regular way. You have to incorporate what you've learned and help others. And then, so I transitioned out of just plain pain management into more of a holistic wellness that incorporated pain management for my patients. But it was a huge transition that I took around 9 years ago, opting out of the chaos and dysfunction of the regular medical system. I eventually had to drop off of all insurance, opt out basically of all accepting insurance.
Wow.
And because they didn't reimburse for these services. And I had to take the leap of faith that this would be valued by people and that I could have a sustainable business helping people the right way, which is spending time with them, educating them, getting to the root cause of why they got sick to begin with. And that's where my journey started.
Mary, could you maybe speak about taking that leap of faith? Because I think there's a lot of doctors that we've spoken to who are in a similar position as you, who have taken that leap of faith and are standing behind their moral convictions around the right approach and really believing in the functional approach to fixing some of these autoimmune diseases that are popping up more and more frequently. What was, obviously your personal story probably weighs pretty heavily here, but what was really the point where you're like, okay, I'm going to do this? Because I imagine it's a daunting and scary point in time when you're making that leap.
Mm-hmm. You know, I come from a family of generations of doctors, and I take my oath very seriously. And I'm honored to be able to serve people in the best way I possibly can. And when you learn a better way and you take your oath seriously and you care about others, and you really don't have any other choice but to change. Mm-hmm. And the things that I was learning by looking for the root cause of disease and decreasing inflammation and nutritional management, I had to incorporate those things. There was a better way. And it literally came to the point that I had to either find another career, or I had to try and, at least if I was going to go out, I was going to go out on my own terms, but I couldn't accept the dysfunctional system anymore when I knew a better way. And I remember kind of having this internal dialogue that was like, okay, well, nobody's going to want to pay out of pocket for this because they're all into the system and they will only go see doctors that are on their insurance, and they're kind of deeply rooted. A lot of people are deeply rooted in the traditional medical system. But I literally had this dialogue that if I don't do it, I'm going to have to change careers, because you can't not give the best to your patients. I mean, it is a sacred duty, I believe, kind of a hero's journey. It's a relationship. Your patient, the doctor-patient relationship is important, and I take it very seriously. And I would treat my patients as if they were a family member, and I wanted to give them the best that I had to give them. So when I opted out of all insurance, it was a pretty tricky time in my life. I was the sole provider for my family, and I, was just getting over my own health crisis. Mm-hmm. And I really had to have kind of a moment where I decided, you know what, I'm going out on my own terms. And I didn't even know that it would be successful. But what I learned was, by taking that leap of faith and doing the best thing for my patients, that it was respected and I got great results. And I never did an ounce of marketing other than a website, but I didn't invest in any kind of, media or anything like that. All of my patients came to me by word of mouth. And the other thing that was crazy was all of my previous referral sources that were sending me patients dried up. Once I was out of the system. Nobody wanted to send me a patient. I was considered, kind of like on the fringe, I guess. So it was really my patients that had remarkable results, and my practice grew because people asked other people, why do you look so amazing? Why are you radiant? Why are you feeling so happy? You know, what are you doing?
Mhm.
And I'll tell you, if you get, you know, a few amazing success stories, all they do is talk about the benefits, because it's like you can give someone their life back,
Mhm.
as I'm
And
sure you guys can relate.
Totally.
100%. That was what I was going to comment on, is like, especially with some of my own issues with ulcerative colitis. It's like you're used to waiting an hour to see your doctor in Western medicine. Maybe you get 10 to 15 minutes with them. You don't have a personal relationship, and they're quickly giving you a checkup and then probably prescribing you some type of medication in pill form if there's something that's wrong. It's like, it's so cool to hear you talk about the relationship with your patient and the sense of obligation. And it's like, yeah, you're paying out of pocket for it, but it's the ultimate investment in your own health, right? Because you're actually getting to the root cause of these diseases that Western medicine isn't helping you solve.
Exactly. And we're both invested. I'm invested, you know, I've invested my life, and my patient has invested their life, and we're coming together with this mutual goal of healing, hope and healing, and vitality, and making the most out of life. It's the most noble of goals. And when you're both on that page and you're both investing your time and your resources, it just it starts there and builds. And then each time a patient takes a positive step and feels a little bit better, I get energy from that. I get energized and I get excited, and it's very rewarding. Whereas the other way I was practicing medicine, yes, people got pain relief, and yes, that's rewarding, but it was Groundhog Day. Every single day was Groundhog Day. It was, we'll get a few months of improvement, and then we'll come back and we'll have 3 or 4 more challenging issues to deal with, and so on and so on and so on. People weren't really, I won't say they weren't, you know, always, sometimes they were getting better, but the majority of the time we were in a holding pattern. We're just trying to hold off getting worse. If that makes any sense. Totally different experience between the two.
It seems like the incentives, it's not that they're necessarily wrong or bad in traditional medicine, but the incentives for you to do everything possible to make things work creates a system that is very much more in line with the recovery as opposed to relief way of thinking, where you're trying to find the root cause. Is that how you view it? Do you see like that you feel like you're much more part of the mission of the recovery process as opposed to just prescribing or trying to find
Definitely. I mean, you know, and the other thing is, I would always want to go the extra mile in the past, you know, to help them with nutrition and weight loss, because if you don't have a healthy weight, almost nothing that I can do is going to really truly make a lasting benefit. And so, you know, the problem with the old system is that you don't get reimbursed for the time that you invest. And I feel sorry for doctors and patients that are in the traditional system to some extent, because it is a no-win situation. It is a dysfunctional system, and you're trying to make the most of the 10 minutes that you have, but you literally, I don't think people understand, you know, what goes into running a business and trying to do the best for your patients. They're almost like mutually exclusive. You only have 10 minutes from a business standpoint, but yet you've taken an oath to do the best for your patients. So what I started the last few years, as I was starting to transition out, I was working harder and harder and longer hours for lower and lower reimbursement, to the point where it became unsustainable for both me and I think probably the patients were not getting everything that they needed, clearly, with 10 minutes and serious issues. And it just seemed like the system was getting sicker, the patients were getting sicker, they needed more time, the system was giving you less time. And it was just, at some point you wave the white flag and say, I give up, and I'm going to find another way.
Speaking of that, are there any concerning health trends that you've come across with adults or even just children patients that you work with, or just studies that you've done that most people just might not be aware of?
I think, there are so many different health trends that are important to pay attention to right now, especially since we're really needing to focus on immunity and health more than ever, and especially metabolic health. It seems like the pandemic has brought awareness to how unhealthy we really have been. Prior to the pandemic, we could have gotten away with being in metabolic syndrome or having some insulin resistance or having extra inflammation. We were skating by, but when a life-threatening illness is in the picture, it becomes more pressing, and health, inflammation, immune function become your most valuable asset, and can literally become a life or death circumstance. So I think just overall wellness is the big trend, should be focused not towards sick management, which is what the traditional system is, but more towards wellness, health optimization, brain optimization, energy, vitality, making the most of every day. And we were all, I think, on a hamster wheel of just going about our days and taking our health for granted until we didn't have any other choice. And now I feel like we owe it to ourselves to focus on health and wellness more than any other time in history, or at least in our history. We need to see this as our number one priority. And as far as trends in health right now, I think that we need to pay close attention to a lot of the things that you guys are talking about. So one, the soil is demineralized. We're all, we may be calorically enriched, but we're nutritionally deficient. And we're hungry all the time because our body is craving nutrients that we used to be able to get from normal food. But with processed food and demineralization of the soil without replacing the minerals after decades of using the same soil, our bodies are always hungry. And that's something that's avoidable, but you have to be more strategic now than ever about replacing those nutrients and where you get those nutrients. So although, and obesity is an epidemic, fatty liver disease is, in my opinion, perhaps one of the most concerning things that we're seeing a trend in. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and you didn't walk around and see people that were overweight, or there was maybe a handful of people who had diabetes in my entire city that I grew up in. I grew up in a small town outside of New Orleans, and it just wasn't. Now it's, the majority of people have some degree of insulin resistance. That's the beginning of the problem. And we aren't looking for it until it's too late. Like you can reverse it if you look for it early, but doctors don't even check unless there's a symptom oftentimes. So for example, a hemoglobin A1C is something that we follow in people after they've already developed diabetes. Well, now we're learning that you can look years before they actually were diagnosed with diabetes and their hemoglobin A1C was gradually trending up. And actually that was the time to take action.
Wow. So
back to your question, I think the big topics, mineral replacement, whether it be through food or through proper supplements, which is a whole nother subject in and of itself, because it is harder to get from food now. Liver detoxification is a hot topic because a lot of people who have been eating processed food have liver congestion. And these are actually the people that I see in my practice who they literally are eating less than 1,000 calories a day, and they're exercising. And for some reason, they're just in a weight, they cannot lose weight. You almost think, how is it possible that you're eating so little and you're not losing weight? And then you check their liver and their liver enzymes are elevated. They have fatty liver disease on ultrasound. they can get off of that weight loss plateau where they're no longer losing any weight and they're still overweight, oftentimes by really focusing on liver health.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another hot topic. So nutrients, liver, and of course meat. I mean, meat is a huge component of nutrition that the narrative is kind of trying to dissuade right now. And I think truth and education needs to be inserted because we are being fed some misinformation regarding the nutritional benefits of meat. And that's really how I learned about you guys, was through Texas Slim and the Beef Initiative. And I reached out to Texas Slim because I have a son who has digestive issues. And the only natural protein that he likes is beef. And he doesn't feel good when he eats other types of protein. And he has a lot of digestive issues if he doesn't eat. So I started to get nervous about the narrative of perhaps legislature limiting how much protein I could give my son. And I used to kind of take for granted if, I would always have access to this. But when I started hearing the narrative that it could be regulated, I reached out when I heard about Texas Slim because I wanted to ensure that I had the nutrition that I needed for my son long-term. So I wanted to have a relationship with a rancher, and I wanted to make sure that he could get grass-fed beef. And I wanted to make sure that he was getting the vitamins and the minerals that are essential he's about to start puberty. I mean, he's almost 12 years old. It's so important during development that they get these nutrients for hormonal development. And even facial development and is associated with chewing. Mm-hmm. And so many of our processed foods are soft. Our kids aren't even chewing, they're just swallowing. And they're swallowing processed food that is causing fatty liver disease. And then they have a lifelong journey, potentially, if they don't turn the ship around, of trying to figure out how to get this weight off. And so, I think getting back to good, healthy nutrition is the foundation of every health journey. Mm-hmm. And I specifically have decided to make this a priority from a public speaking standpoint, because I'm worried about our kids, especially. Mm-hmm. Our young men. I noticed a trend that my young men were having lower and lower testosterone levels. And that was a huge concern when I was getting mothers who were my patients who were saying, something's wrong with my son. He doesn't want to have a girlfriend. He hasn't started growing a beard. He's got breast tissue. He's got a kind of a beer gut, and he's tired all the time and lethargic. Well, libido is not just your sex drive, it's your life drive. Mm. And it is predominantly affected by testosterone. And to find a young man in the prime of his life when his libido and his life drive should be at its highest, and to find his testosterone levels are that of a prepubescent male or even a young woman. And I started to see this trend over the past, especially since I started checking hormones, since I did functional medicine. But each year it seemed to be getting worse and worse. And there were more and more young men that their mothers came in to see me for hormonal management, or their fathers for health and wellness. And then I would see the sons, and it was just shocking. It was just absolutely shocking. And I would encourage any mother who's listening to check of a young man in their late teens, early 20s, or any age beyond, really, to ask for a testosterone level, because normal physicians don't check that. So I think that's a really important thing to think about as far as health trends. And another thing that we can talk about, it's that a lot of people don't like to talk about, is kids' digestive health. Mm-hmm. A lot of times parents have no clue how often their kids are going to the bathroom or having a bowel movement, what's going on, because it's a private time and kids don't exactly run out of the bathroom and say, can you come look at this? Something's wrong here. And so I would also encourage people to ask their kids, how do they feel? Do they feel like they're going on a regular basis, twice a day? Is it normal? What does it look like? I know it's an uncomfortable topic, but ask them to take a picture and encourage them to discuss what's going on in the bathroom, because that is a symptom of perhaps some sort of serious problem with the digestive tract, which can affect every aspect of your life. It can affect your cognitive ability. It can affect your hormonal development. It can affect your energy level, your school performance, your sleep. So it's really important that we know how our children are doing from a digestive standpoint. And it's something that we're not talking about enough. So those are kind of some of the big things that I've been thinking about recently, but there are so many other things that we can talk about. Brain health is another big one we can touch on.
How many of these things are interrelated? Because it seems like, if you have a kid or a young man who's got fatty liver disease, it's probably going to be affecting his libido in some way, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah, the liver is really important for metabolism of hormones, formation of hormones, and metabolism of hormones. And it's also connected to your digestive tract. So if you have fatty liver disease, you're going to, in general, have a problem with being what we call more estrogen dominant, which, men and women have both testosterone and estrogen. But all of my patients seem to be having more difficulty getting rid of the intermediate metabolic products of estrogen due to an ineffective filter, which is your liver. And so these estrogen products tend to build up because of plastic bottles that we're drinking out of, because of pesticides and herbicides that we're exposed to, because of the amount of processed food, seed oil. It's the same disease that alcoholics get, this fatty liver disease. And over time, it can lead to cirrhosis and liver cancer. And we're seeing it in young people, and it affects their development. So all of this may seem daunting, and we've identified some pretty significant problems. But what I'd like to say is there are some very simple solutions, as you both know, and you've discussed. And so instead of becoming overwhelmed with how huge this problem is, maybe it's a good idea to start talking about some simple, step one solutions, because when you're in what I call a health ditch, it's hard to dig yourself out of it. And there are some things that you can do because you don't have the mental clarity or the motivation or the drive or the libido, as I call your life force, to make the effort to make the changes. And you can make some simple choices that give you the mental clarity and energy in a short amount of time that can help you start turning the ship around and going in the correct direction. So it just starts with mental clarity. Once you have mental clarity and energy back, which you can get in a very short amount of time, then you can start the next step, which is, cooking more and going to your farmer's market or buying a grass-fed cow from a rancher, but all of those things have to come in the right order, and really put your oxygen mask on first before helping the person next to you. It almost always, in my experience, has started with the mom. And the moms are, the moms who aren't sleeping well and are stressed out and are toxic and, overweight, and they're motivated to turn things around. They want a better life. They realize a problem. And they're the ones who usually come in for help first. And if you can get a mom feeling better, it changes the world. And it starts with just getting her a little bit more mental clarity.
It's a great point, because if you're a mom, how do you expect for your child to be healthy and feed them with nourishing stuff if you can't even take care of yourself, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And think about what most of these are working mothers, or even if they're only working in the home. I mean, they need to have the mental clarity to prioritize their children's health at the very top of their list. And that takes mental clarity to see that there's an importance and a value to that. Because remember, they're multitasking and they're, running the house and supporting the children. And sometimes, and it is the easiest thing to put last, and the most important thing to put first is your own health and the health of your children. So sometimes, driving through for fast food is, basically the only way that they can get things done, because they're having such trouble with their cognitive ability. I call it brain fog. And they're just barely holding on, and they're forgetting things, and their time is cloudy and going quickly, and they've just got too much on their plate. And I would say, what I did a few years ago was I boycotted birthday parties for a while. I just boycotted them. They took up our weekends. And I decided I'm going to use the time that we would normally spend to go to a birthday party. And I'm just going to say no to all birthday parties, because it's 4 hours on a weekend. And I'm going to spend that time in high quality activities with my own kids. And no matter who asks, the answer is no. For the next 6 months, we're not doing birthday parties. And that way the kids didn't come home in a sugar coma. And I didn't have like 2 days of undoing the nightmare that they eat at the birthday parties, and the irritability and the hyperactivity and difficult. I mean, these are when you're young, the kids are pretty affected by artificial sweeteners and seed oils and things like that. And then, so that was just one small step, but in that time I had time to go to the grocery store, and we had time to cook together, and I had time to kind of teach my kids that this is important, and this is the reason why we're holding off on birthday parties for a little while, and they get it. So
speaking of the brain fog, Dr. Mary, you've been a big advocate of that 48-hour bone broth fast, which Harrison and I have both done and had amazing results. Can you elaborate on that a little bit, and why you like that as a way for moms or just people in general to dig themselves out of that brain fog and that mental ditch?
Sure. So leaky gut causes a foggy brain. And most of us have leaky guts, meaning there's a thin lining of our digestive tract that has cells that are connected by what you can kind of think of as tiles connected by grout. And when we eat processed food, that grout tends to wear away, and food can get into the bloodstream through that, what should be a barrier, and can cause inflammation and even autoimmune disease and brain fog. So oftentimes leaky gut is caused by processed food. So if you can, and it repairs itself extremely quickly, like in 48 hours, you can have the majority of those tight junctions, or what they're called, but it's actually grout. Kind of think of it as grout in tiles. They can regenerate pretty quickly. And so if you can kind of seal the gut and get rid of all of the processed food for 48 hours, you can actually feel, I don't know if you felt it when you did it, but in 48 hours, you can feel an incredible improvement in your cognitive ability. And it's not that the broth is, specifically nourishing the brain, which it is, but more importantly, what it's doing is healing the gut and resealing it, kind of like putting a seal over your grout. And when you have those tight junctions reconnect so quickly, then you can start reintroducing, you feel better, you're more mentally clear, your inflammatory levels go down significantly. your digestive tract. It's just very nourishing and to the digestive tract. And then it's a good way to get important proteins in a good natural way that are soothing and nourishing, as well as vitamins and minerals. So it's just something very easy that you can do. And sometimes that is one of the more effective ways that I can help people get out of the ditch pretty quickly. It's just a 48-hour bone broth cleanse. And I know a lot of people are afraid of feeling hungry, but it's surprising, especially if you put some fat, like in the form of ghee or butter in, and you put enough salt. And if you take, you can take a mineral supplement if you'd like, in addition to that, as long as it's, the right supplement. But that sometimes is a very good first step to start thinking more clearly and feeling better. And then the next decision is a little bit easier to make, the next health decision. So you have to start somewhere, and that's a really good place to start.
And you mentioned the butter, and I've tried that before. I think it's such a great way to kind of hit that reset button. And I know that after the first 24-hour period, the mental clarity that comes with it is incredible. And it does help you make those better decisions when it comes to eating the right foods, having the willpower to go and start making the other changes that you need to make. What would be so if this is the reset button, what would be some of the other things that you would start tweaking when you do that, whether it's get more sleep or start going on longer walks, just kind of the basic foundational steps of turning things around?
Yeah, I think each person that I see, I kind of have to get a feel for where they are and what they're capable of and what they're willing to commit to. And I like to personalize it because they need a win. They need a win. They haven't had a win in so long. So when I'm deciding how much we're going to bite off at the very first visit, I'm really judging it because we can go quickly or we can take it one step at a time. And it really is up to the individual. I never want someone to feel overwhelmed or feel like they can't do it. And if they're scared of feeling hungry, I honor that and I give them potential solutions for that. I'm not even opposed to helping them with their hunger with a natural supplement, or even on rare occasions, I'll give them a short-term medication that could decrease their appetite. I'm pretty creative with that type of medication as well. I usually use a compounding pharmacy and make it kind of personal, but I want to empower them to have a win. That's the most important thing. And once you get the first win, they come back and they're in. And then the second win is about 10 times easier. And then the third win. But I almost always start with eliminating processed food. Whole30 is a pretty good starter for some people if they're open to that. Intermittent fasting is another, but everyone's different. And it doesn't have to be the same for everyone. But what I have almost universally found is that a bone broth 48-hour cleanse is extremely powerful.
Got it. No, that's great. I don't know how you'll respond to this, but we're curious because a lot of times we'll post on Twitter foods that we think are overrated versus underrated. Is there anything that comes to mind for are there any popular foods that are deemed as superfoods that you think are very overrated? And then also foods that don't get enough attention that you would maybe recommend to your patients as being great foods?
Well, I guess the first one that comes to mind, steak versus shake.
Yeah.
And not that shakes can't have good things in them, but the chewing that goes along with the steak and the natural zinc and selenium and B vitamins and creatine is so important. And that's the type of protein that's so important for muscle building. And so the difference between steak and shake is the chewing and the digestion, and especially if it's grass-fed. Whereas shake, you can get the same amount of protein, but you're hungry very soon after because you didn't have the whole process of cooking, of sitting down, of chewing. And by the way, chewing is very important for our children's jaw development, their mouth development, whether or not they develop sleep apnea or sinus problems. And we now know that chewing actually helps with lymphatic drainage of the brain, which we didn't even know until recently, that it was a major component of how we detoxify our brains. So chewing is very, very important. So if you think about the difference between steak and shake, try and choose the steak for your children if you can go in that direction. And again, it doesn't have to be either or, and there are good components in some shakes, but if given the choice, that would be one of the big ones. Other things, I mean, anything with seed oil and processed food, I try and stay away from. And in fact, I've had patients who've had a lifelong battle with acne, and everything has been tried under the sun. And the only thing that actually worked was limiting seed oils. So that would be another good versus bad. So the type of oil that you're cooking with. I like ghee. I'll use a little avocado oil. I like MCT oil or coconut oil, lard, those sorts of things. They've been given a bad rap, but actually it's funny that that the science is coming around, and that we really misinterpreted the science for many, many decades. Even eggs, you definitely want to eat the egg yolk. Everybody used to think that it was just the egg whites because that's where the protein is. But the egg yolk actually has choline and B vitamins and important cholesterol that's important for hormones. So cholesterol is not a bad word. It just has to be the right type of cholesterol and hopefully from a natural source.
That's such good advice. And we talk about the protein powder a lot, especially like we both played baseball in college. And it was all about like the pre-workout supplements, which were incredibly processed, just jamming your system with caffeine. And then immediately afterwards, trying to get some like mass gainer shake, which is really just like dehydrated whey and casein, and then a bunch of other artificial flavorings and fillers and preservatives, because it might be sitting in a warehouse shelf for 2+ months before it actually gets to you in the store. Yet we demonize these things like raw milk, which is like dairy as nature intended and has a ton of great protein and digestive enzymes. It's just interesting the things that we've come to accept within society versus the things that we try and demonize with our food.
Exactly. Yeah, I completely agree.
And you mentioned acne too, which I think a lot of people deal with. And I had my own battle with it and ended up resorting to Accutane to fix it. But I really wish I had spent the time on the nutritional front. As a kid, you're dealing with a lot of different things, but I look back now and it's like, I was eating terribly at school. So out of the purview of my mom's like oversight when it came to like what I was eating, the lunch line was just loaded with chips that probably had seed oils in it, cookies, sandwiches that were with like white bread and processed deli meats. So when I look back, I'm like, my mom was trying to do everything under the sun to help me out. And it was really my dietary choices at school that were leading me to have this reaction to, the food I was eating and then ultimately having really bad acne. So I do think that's just like one isolated example of nutrition and how it can affect, adolescents. But I think it's a good one because it just does go to show that there's like these changes that you can make that have these positive outcomes.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I've been down that journey as well. And after Accutane twice, my problems just came back until I fixed my diet. They just came back. Yeah.
Wow.
So until I got rid of seed oils, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe talk about the seed oils a little bit, because I think that it's one of those things that's come into the limelight now with there's a lot of people on Twitter talking about it, and I think it's getting some traction, but still so many of our products have canola oil in it. A lot of these new aged health products like Oatly and Just Egg, they have these vegetable oils in them that are ultimately terrible for us. Can you, like, what would be your simple messaging around how to avoid seed oils, or what people should be aware of as they're, going through the grocery store and trying to get food for the week?
Ideally a 0 seed oil tolerance is best. And I think you don't realize how badly it's making your children feel, or how badly it's making you feel, until you get off of it. And the only way to see that and prove it to yourself is just to do it. And the detoxification from it is not that hard, because there are substitutes. You just have to be smart, and you just have to find the substitute products, because it's not like you're giving up everything that you ever loved. You just have to find something different. So like, if we're going to, for a special occasion, have to make something, like a cake or something like that, we're not using vegetable oil, clearly. We're using MCT oil or ghee or coconut oil, or even some things we'll use olive oil for. I've started making my own bread, because a lot of the bread has seed oil in it. Anything that's basically in the center aisles of your grocery store, if you read the labels, the majority of those things contain seed oils that have been promoted as healthy choices. Quote, vegetable oil. The word vegetable means health, right? And so I think a lot of people have been led to believe, and myself included for a long time, that was a healthy choice. And but it's simple to just find alternatives and get off of it, and have a 0 tolerance for it for at least a little while, so that you can see the difference. It's a big difference. It's a big difference from a weight loss standpoint, from a especially mental clarity. That's probably the biggest difference.
Yeah. You mentioned the bread, which I think like gluten intolerance is something that has previously been talked about a bunch. And then people are also talking about dairy intolerances. Do you attribute that to gluten, or like bread and dairy, or more like the highly processed aspect of what we're doing to those food sources that's like actually affecting people, or like all the additives that we put into those foods?
I think it depends on the person. It depends on the gluten. It depends the type of gluten, and it depends on what it's combined with. But what I found, I used to think that I had gluten intolerance. And when I was going through my health journey, I probably went, years gluten-free and felt better. But what I realize now is that I have no problem with gluten, as long as it's not combined with seed oil. So that's just my personal journey. That's not everyone's journey. There are certain people who are celiac or gluten intolerant that do better with completely eliminating it, and including quite a few of my patients. And so it just really depends on the person. But what I usually encourage people to do is to do that 48-hour bone broth cleanse, stay seed oil free, and then just reintroduce things that you think you may or may not tolerate, slowly, one at a time, and if you feel different, if you feel tired and mentally sluggish, those are the 2 big symptoms after eating those, usually a couple hours, an hour or 2, a couple hours after. That's a red flag. And that may be something that you want to keep a notebook and keep track of the things that you did not feel good after you ate.
Right.
The food,
very individual.
Yeah. The food journal is huge, Dr. Mary. And it's something that we don't think enough people either do or talk about. Like when I was coming back from colitis, literally just documenting the meals that I was eating. Like, it sounds crazy, but like my mood, how many bowel movements was I having, my overall energy level, that's really how I was able to work backwards and say, okay, well, people are telling me to eat these like dark leafy greens and cruciferous vegetables, but it's actually not sitting well with my stomach. And like, my mom's Italian, she's an amazing Italian cook. And I'm like, well, I love tomato sauce, but it's actually irritating my stomach. So it was like by being able to keep that food journal, I was able to focus on the things that helped me optimize and then cut out the things that didn't.
Yeah, you were taking an individualized approach and you were being smart about it. And you were documenting and doing basically your own study.
Mhm.
And that's the way we don't need a healthcare professional to tell us what makes us feel good. But the problem is that most of the time we just accept that feeling tired and sluggish and having, focus problems and sleep problems, we just accept that that's part of life. And sometimes you never know what you're capable of feeling or how much energy you're capable of having until you do one of these cleanses. And then you have a baseline of, okay, this is how I should feel. And then if anything that deviates from that good feeling, you make note of and try and limit and try and form a list of things that make you feel good. You want to feel good after you eat.
Yeah,
I personally feel great after animal protein.
animal And you said your son does really well on beef too. Have you noticed a difference in just the quality of the meat since you've started sourcing from a local rancher in the Dallas area?
I'm in the middle of starting that sourcing journey. I just got to know Texas Slim and just met Cole, a local rancher, and just ordered my first box. So but in general, I try and buy from my grocery stores. In fact, I always buy grass-fed.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm making the change right now. So he always gets grass-fed beef. That's all we do. So I don't know how he would feel if he was eating a different type of beef, but I do know that he just feels better. He just feels better when he eats that. The other really cool thing about eating animal protein, if it agrees with you, and there are some people that it doesn't always agree with, but not being controlled by hunger is so empowering, because when you're hungry and nutritionally starved for healthy fats and healthy nutrients that are in some of these foods, it feels like your whole world is controlled by your hunger. Every thought is controlled. You can't even focus on anything else. I don't know if you guys have ever been there, especially when, like, I was training for an Ironman a while ago, and you're calorically keeping up with the requirements, but you're nutritionally starved because you're not eating the right things. And so you're just kind of your whole life revolves around hunger. And it's empowering when you realize that life doesn't have to be that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned, so your son started eating more beef, and then previously you had mentioned kind of the hyperactivity in a lot of adolescents. And I'm curious if you noticed a change in his ability to monitor that energy that kids have, obviously, but or if you've seen it in patients that you've had where they're struggling with some sort of hyperactivity or loss of focus as a kid, and then they've made some of these dietary changes and been able to regulate that. Because one of the things that we talk about all the time is how many kids we grew up with who were medicated with Adderall or Ritalin, and we're generally curious about the long-term effects of that when you're putting a 10 to 15-year-old on some serious medication, amphetamines that are obviously very powerful drugs. So curious to see if you've seen any success with the nutrition stuff when it comes to that hyperactivity.
I'm like a lot of mothers. They probably can tell a difference. They know their kid's baseline. They know their kid on their best day and on their worst day.
Mm-hmm.
And probably, if you really sit down and think about it, their best days are when they've eaten well, exercised, gotten a good night's sleep, and gotten a lot of sunshine. And we underestimate the power of sunshine. That's a whole nother topic.
Mm-hmm.
But on their worst days, they're usually sleep deprived, stressed, loaded up on sugar, on video games all day, and sedentary,
Right.
So yes, definitely. I can see a difference in both of my children. I have a 10-year-old little girl and an almost 12-year-old little boy. And based on how good of a job I do as a parent determines, you know, how good of a day my kids have.
Mhm.
And like, for example, I was speaking at the Beef Initiative this past weekend, which was a wonderful event. And I'm sorry, we just missed each other, but I came home and the person who was watching my kids had taken them to a Mexican food restaurant. And it was like two different children. They weren't even my children that I came home to. And they even laughed about it and said, my mom would never let me eat this stuff. And apparently they went through baskets of chips. So, you know, so my son stayed home from school on Monday. He was that sick. He could not, and he has not missed a day of school this entire year.
Wow.
Or he can be pretty dramatic. And he was, you know, he would kill me if I told people this, but he was in a lot of pain and in the bathroom a lot. I mean, because of that.
Yeah.
And it took 2 days to undo. So yes, you can, but let's say you have a kid who's always irritable and always hyper. It might be worth a try just for a week, seeing if there's a huge difference by adding, you know, some grass-fed beef, some natural good protein, some good healthy fats, and eliminate anything processed if you can. You know, keep in mind, we think these kids have so much control over us, but we actually have control over what we put in front of them, and we need to empower ourselves that we're doing the right thing. It's not easy. And sometimes you know, you may have to take the kids away for a weekend and say, we're going to have this wonderful weekend, and they not even realize that they're getting unprocessed food for the first time in their life.
Mhm.
And just see what you get after 48 hours. It's sunshine is huge. Our kids are not getting enough sunshine. They're not playing barefoot outside enough. They're not chewing enough. They're not socializing like we did as kids. They're not, you know, wrestling or, you know, or playing with dolls as much as they used to. I mean, electronics are becoming more and more important. So simple things like getting back to the basics can have a huge impact on your kid and how they develop into a healthy young adult for the rest of their life. And we have a lot of power, but we just have to prioritize.
Yeah, it's a really strong message. I think you had me thinking back to my own childhood and like going outside and just playing barefoot, or like going down to the creek and just being in a creek for like an hour and being outside. It's like there's no better memories or time than those times where your kids, or where you're like detached from all the technology that we have today, and you're just like engaged with nature. And I think that I wonder if there's something to that with kids today, maybe not being as creative because they're not coming up with games with their friends to go play and things like that. So you just had me thinking there for a second about some childhood memories.
Well, hopefully those memories are not lost forever. And hopefully, you know, through things like what you are doing, people are going to realize that maybe they should lock up the electronics for a while, maybe even for the whole summer. And, you know, I don't care if my kids come in dirty or, you know, go out barefoot, or when I was growing up, I don't think I put on shoes the entire summer.
Literally.
You know, I don't know. I grew up in small town Louisiana, and that's just the way we did it. You know, and we were always looking for crawfish in the ditch, and we were fishing in the ponds, and it was just a different time. And you know, your kids have their whole life ahead of them to be on social media and working with a computer. And, you know, this is a very precious time, and they may never have the opportunity again to really, truly experience the beauty of play and being outside and connecting with nature.
Yeah, we're both in our late 20s, and I mean, it's all anecdotal, but we've been on our personal Instagram accounts. We've been posting more about just like some of our dietary changes, and the number of people that have reached there must be dozens and dozens of friends that I have that have reached out to me saying that their gut is always irritated. They think they have IBS. They don't know how to actually eat. And it's like, it makes sense, right? Because they're in this desk job where they're probably slunched over all day. They're blasting themselves with blue light. They're eating all processed foods. They're not outside. They're chronically stressed out. A lot of our friends have gotten on Adderall at a young age. And it's like, now they're in their late 20s and they're kind of reaping the effects of like the continuation of the Western medicinal system. So I'm just so curious, like how many people have undiagnosed IBS, because I think that number would probably shock a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It's a major problem and it's so easily solved. It's just a matter of making a choice. And sometimes it's easier to make that choice with a friend or family member to do it with. If you know somebody who doesn't feel good and you love them and you want to help them, why not do it with them?
Mm-hmm.
You may not realize that you could even feel better, even if you think you're healthy, but why not get a group together, support each other, encourage each other, and go for a walk in the morning, get your sunshine as part of it. But just take 48 hours to feel good and to reset your gut and take the first step towards feeling better forever, hopefully.
That sort of communal mindset is really what inspired us to get going, because we were, again, in the fall running this Ironman together, living together. And, we were at the peak of probably the peak of our physical health journeys. And we were just like, we both love this stuff. We're so empowered by what each other think about when it comes to health, and also just feel motivated and inspired to just continue down this path. And I think having the support system in place is so underrated. Like the environment that you put yourself in for your informational diet and, everything else is so huge. It plays into everything that you do. And so when we were sort of isolated in this very intense period of our life where we're training for this Ironman, it really bred this spirit that we wanted to put something together that could actually start having, like, people could start having these conversations a little bit more openly, especially with both of us having different stories, recovering from, our own little, our own journeys with some lifestyle and health issues. So that definitely speaks to us and what we're trying to do. So the community stuff is huge.
So huge. And speaking of the community thing, Texas Slim and I are going to make an announcement tomorrow about a community project, I guess we should call it, tomorrow on his on his YouTube channel. But it's a call to action to have a community supported wellness journey, an easy one, a short one, but we really want to help people make that kind of decision and do it as a community, because it's hard to do it on your own. But when you're doing it as a group, it's a lot easier, and we can support one another, and we can all celebrate with good benefits and start this journey on the right step.
That's perfect. And I think that we should probably actually get this episode out tomorrow. Harry spins these out pretty quickly, so it's like perfect timing, because it'll be coming out tomorrow. And then you and Slim will be announcing that community challenge, which we think people are going to absolutely love.
Hopefully you guys can join us. I think it's going to be interesting, and I can't wait to hear people's response and their outcomes, and how big of a change it makes in people's lives.
It's going to be amazing. Yeah, we're excited to see. And Mary, for anyone that's listening to this that wants to connect with you further, what's the best way for them to go about doing that?
I have a webpage. It's marycairemd.com, a website that has a lot of educational information. As far as connecting with me right now, I'm not accepting new patients, but I am interested in educating, and I'm starting to become more active on Twitter and plan on becoming more active on YouTube as well. So stay tuned for that. But right now, just doing things like this and serving in this way, just like the two of you are, is very satisfying. And I hope to do more of this. And I just hope that if this encouraged even one person to make the right step towards their family, it's well worthwhile.
It's such an awesome message. And I think we can end it there. That's I think empowering, and we really appreciate you coming on and sharing your experiences with us. And we're just excited to continue to have these types of conversations with people like yourself.
Well, thank you. And I'm happy to visit with you anytime. And I wish everyone who's listening the very best of health and good luck with your health journey. And let's make the right changes to make this world better.
Let's do it.
We'll
Thanks,
see
Mary.
we'll see you at Ironman Waco.
That sounds good. I think I might do it. I'm just getting the urge to do another Ironman. So if I can find the time, maybe we'll do it not this October or the next, or are you talking about this October?
We're open books. We would do it this October. If you did it this October, I'm sure we would sign up.
Okay, let's to be continued. So let's see how many other people out there want to do it with us.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
We can get a big community of people doing it this October, then maybe I'll just have to get back on my bike and make it happen.
But, all right.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mary. This is amazing. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, you guys. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks for all you're doing. It's great.
Of course.
Appreciate it.